We've had some really insightful pieces come across our desks lately about the current state of the real estate market. And for you tuning in right now, the mission of this deep dive is simple. Let's try and cut through the noise and make sense of what these trends actually mean for you.
Absolutely. The information we've been looking at, it points to some really significant shifts happening, maybe under the surface a bit.
Exactly. As I've been absorbing all this, several big themes keep emerging. Like, we're seeing a definite gravitation towards new construction, which is a fascinating pivot.
Uh-huh.
We also can't ignore the, lingering shadow of past project delays.
Right. That comes up a lot.
And it looks like buyer preferences are shifting too, in terms of payment strategies and the type of property that's catching their eye, the whole plot versus flat dynamic, for instance.
Yeah, that's a key one.
Then, of course, the quality of construction and how our changing lifestyles factor into all of this. Well, they're crucial pieces of the puzzle. So our goal today is to really weave these threads together so you get a clear, digestible understanding of today's real estate landscape.
And it's worth noting, these aren't just abstract ideas, right? They're rooted in an analysis of what's happening in the market right now and how buyers are actually behaving.
Right.
The information even gives us a bit of a timeline referencing the difficulties with stalled projects between, say, 2007 and 2013,
Yeah, that period.
and the changes we've seen take hold since 2019, and how projects launched around 2019, 2020 are faring now. It gives us real-world context for our discussion.
Okay, so let's jump right into what seems like a pretty significant sea change, this strong preference for new construction.
Yeah.
And it really looks like buyers and investors are increasingly drawn to those properties that are either currently being built or have just been launched.
That's right. The information we have clearly indicates this growing trend. And the reasons behind it are quite revealing, actually. Buyers and investors are prioritizing these projects largely because, well, they anticipate more reliable completion timelines.
Makes sense.
And crucially for many, these often come with more flexible financial planning options. Those staged payment plans.
Which is completely understandable when you consider the fallout from those projects that stalled between 2007 and 2013.
Oh, absolutely.
The material specifically mentions the greater Noida area and the sheer number of people who got caught in those delays. That kind of experience,
Wow.
it must have created a deep sense of caution.
It did.
It made people very wary of investing in real estate for a good while, I'd imagine.
Precisely. That period of uncertainty, it cast a long shadow over buyer confidence. It really, really eroded trust, particularly in some local developers. And this is where we see an interesting development.
Mhm.
The arrival of national-level developers, especially those with strong reputations, maybe from South India or Mumbai, into the North India market.
Oh,
They
okay.
essentially stepped in to fill that gap in trust and reliability.
It's like they were signaling, look, we have a proven track record. Even if local experiences haven't always been smooth, that makes perfect sense as a way to rebuild confidence.
Exactly.
And then we have RERA, the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act. Now, the information is clear that RERA can't, magically undo the past.
No, can't fix history.
But it has brought about real improvements in how things are done now, right?
It has, definitely.
So for you, the listener, the bottom line with RERA is a significant increase in protection and transparency compared to, well, what some might consider the pre-2016 Wild West of real estate.
Exactly. RERA has introduced several key safeguards. For you as a buyer, this includes the mandatory registration of builder-buyer agreements. That adds a crucial layer of legal formality.
Yeah.
Security,
Right. More formal.
definitely. The documentation surrounding property transactions, it's become much more standardized.
Okay.
And perhaps most importantly, the establishment of escrow accounts. That provides greater clarity on how your funds are being utilized for the specific project.
Ah, the escrow accounts. Tell me more about that. How does that work for the buyer?
Well, think of it like a neutral holding pot for your money. The builder can only access it as they hit certain construction milestones.
Uh-huh.
It ensures your money is actually going into your project, not, funding something else.
Makes sense. Like a safeguard. So it's not just a case of handing over a large sum and just hoping for the best anymore.
Not at all. There's a system of checks and balances in place now.
Now, while the material does note that builder-buyer agreements might still lean somewhat in favor of the builder,
Yeah, that's mentioned.
the overall landscape sounds significantly improved. So even with RERA, what are some potential areas where an agreement might still favor the builder? What should listeners maybe look out for?
That's a very important question. Yeah. While RERA has standardized many aspects, some builders might still include clauses related to, say, minor changes in project plans or timelines.
Okay.
That could offer them a degree of flexibility, sometimes at the buyer's potential inconvenience.
Right.
Also, the mechanisms for dispute resolution, while they're improved, they still require buyers to be proactive and informed about their rights.
So still need to read the fine print.
Absolutely. It's essential to still carefully review the agreement and, as possible, maybe get legal counsel to look it over.
Good to know. So while RERA is a big step forward, it's still a buyer beware, but maybe be more aware situation.
Something like that, yeah. Be informed.
And we're actually seeing the positive effects of these changes, aren't we?
We are.
The fact that projects launched in, say, 2019 and 2020 are now starting to deliver possession,
Uh-huh.
even if some are still experiencing delays of, maybe a year to 2.5 years, it shows that delivery confidence is being rebuilt. People are seeing tangible progress.
Absolutely. That visible progress is key. It's crucial for restoring trust in the market, particularly in that new construction segment.
Okay, so people are increasingly opting for new construction, partly because of that increased sense of security. But buying any property, especially a new one, can be a huge financial undertaking.
Huge.
This brings us to how buyers are actually making these deals work, the emergence of more flexible payment structures. It sounds like some interesting new models are becoming more prevalent.
Yes, they are.
This is a crucial insight for you listening. The sticker price isn't the only factor anymore. These new payment models might unlock properties you previously thought were out of reach.
Exactly. What's really interesting is the growing popularity of these staggered payment plans.
Right.
We're seeing models like 20.40.4 error or maybe 30.4 or 0.38 or free becoming quite common.
Okay, break that down. What does 20.40.4 year mean?
Basically, you're not required to pay the entire purchase price up front. So maybe 20% initially, then another 40% spread over the construction period as milestones are met, and then the final 40% when you get possession.
Ah, okay, so you spread it out.
You spread it out instead of a massive chunk up front.
And the example provided really highlights the appeal, doesn't it?
It does.
Say, 120 lakh home with payments spread out over 4 to 5 years might feel much more manageable, just in terms of your immediate cash flow.
Right, your monthly outgoings.
Compared to maybe a slightly cheaper Euro 100 lakh home where a significant portion of the payment is required right at the start.
Exactly. It's about affordability over time, even if the total cost might end up being slightly higher on paper.
Right.
This opens up opportunities for buyers who might have felt priced out of certain segments if they had to make a huge down payment.
But it also means navigating the choice between maybe a potentially less expensive older property and a new launch with these flexible payments.
Yeah.
It requires a more strategic approach now.
It does. You really need to consider, okay, is this property for my own use or is it an investment? What stage of construction is a new project in?
Yeah.
And importantly, how are property values likely to change over time in that specific location? Lots to weigh up.
Which brings us to a really significant factor. The rapid appreciation, the jump in property values we've witnessed.
Oh, yeah. That's been dramatic.
The leap from properties priced around, 1 crore to now fetching duo 2.5, even 5 crore in some areas? That's huge.
It's massive.
The difficulty in upgrading because of these massive price jumps is likely making people rethink what kind of property they can realistically afford.
That's a critical point. This substantial increase in the cost of newer properties, it's made it considerably more challenging for existing homeowners to upgrade.
Right.
The price gap has just widened so much that the equity they've built in their current property,
Yeah.
it might just not be enough to bridge it.
Yeah, I can see that.
This definitely impacts your potential strategies if you were, considering moving to a larger or maybe a better located home.
It almost creates a situation where you might feel sort of locked into your current property unless you can somehow manage that much larger initial investment in a new, significantly more expensive one.
It can feel that way for some, yeah.
Now let's pivot a bit and talk about the type of property people are gravitating towards. The discussion around plots versus flats seems to have some distinct regional differences.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is the contrasting picture that emerges when we compare metro cities with, say, Tier 2 cities regarding the feasibility of buying plots.
Okay.
In major metropolitan areas, like the Gugon example mentioned, the information highlights several challenges. These often include unclear or maybe evolving construction regulations, like how many floors you can actually build.
Right, the rules can change.
Exactly. Additionally, securing loans for plot purchases can sometimes be more difficult compared to financing for apartments.
Is that right? Why is that?
Well, lenders sometimes perceive plots, especially without immediate construction plans, as slightly riskier. Plus, the land registry processes can be quite complex and honestly time-consuming in big cities.
Okay.
This combination of factors often makes plot ownership in these large urban centers kind of impractical, especially for middle-income buyers.
It sounds like navigating a bit of a regulatory and logistical maze in the major metros when it comes to plots.
That's a good way to put it, a bit of a maze.
But then the information offers a different perspective when we look at Tier 2 cities, like Indore was mentioned.
Yes, exactly.
There it appears that plots still hold considerable appeal and potential.
Yes, in those developing real estate markets, the story of Kloss is often still unfolding, you might say. There might be greater clarity in zoning and construction rules, maybe better alignment with loan availability, and perhaps more straightforward administrative processes.
I see.
So your geographical location really becomes a key determinant of whether purchasing a plot is a viable and attractive option for you.
It's a good reminder of just how localized the real estate market truly is, isn't it?
Absolutely.
What's a practical choice in one city might be entirely different just a few hours away.
Completely different ballgame sometimes.
Now, let's delve into the actual nuts and bolts of what you're buying. Construction quality. The information touches on how building practices have, well, evolved over time.
Yeah, this is an area where we see a significant transformation. It seems driven by both economic pressures and shifts in sort of societal norms.
How so?
Well, the material talks about a time when self-constructed homes were more prevalent, often with experienced elder family members directly supervising the construction.
Right, I remember hearing about that. Like, your uncle or grandpa would oversee everything.
Exactly. And this direct oversight apparently led to noticeable cost savings. The figures mentioned are in the range of 1,000 to 1,500 per square foot saved.
Wow, that's significant.
And it also played a crucial role in ensuring a higher standard of quality control. Someone who really cared was watching.
Having someone with a vested interest and, hands-on experience overseeing the work definitely makes sense from a quality perspective. But
Yeah.
the information also details some of the cost-cutting measures that builders sometimes employ today, which could be a real concern if you're in the market for a new home.
It could be.
Essentially, it means the bones of the building might not be as strong long-term.
Indeed. We have specific examples mentioned, like the use of thinner steel rods, say 12 millimeters in diameter instead of the more robust 16 millimeter.
Okay.
The use of lower quality red bricks and maybe weaker plaster is also highlighted. That can lead to various wall-related issues down the line.
Like what kind of issues?
Well, even difficulties with basic tasks, like hammering a nail in straight or drilling a hole without the plaster crumbling, things you wouldn't expect to be a problem.
Those are concrete illustrations of where construction quality might be compromised, maybe in an effort to reduce costs.
That's the suggestion, yeah, cost
Yeah.
pressures.
That paints a picture of potentially less durable construction compared to what might have been the norm in the past.
Potentially in some cases.
And the information connects this partly to changes in social structures, right?
Okay.
The decline in that direct, skilled family involvement in overseeing construction projects.
Exactly that. Fewer families today have the time, or maybe the technical knowledge, or perhaps even the inclination to directly manage big construction projects.
That's busy.
It is. And this has led to a greater dependence on professional builders and, consequently, an overall increase in construction costs, generally speaking.
Right.
But this trend is also intertwined with a broader societal shift towards prioritizing convenience in our lifestyles.
Ah, the convenience factor. It's that idea that we're increasingly outsourcing tasks that were once commonly handled within the household, isn't it?
Precisely. From tailoring clothes maybe to home repairs, and now even the construction of our homes, we largely rely on external professionals for a lot of things.
Yeah, we do.
So just as we might prefer the convenience of ordering food online or hiring a cleaning service, the appeal of a ready-to-move-in builder project becomes stronger for many home buyers, even if there might be trade-offs in terms of cost or potentially long-term quality compared to those older homes built with more direct owner oversight.
So you're essentially paying a premium for that convenience and immediacy, getting the keys and moving straight in.
That's often part of the appeal, yes.
Yeah.
Convenience.
So as we look ahead then, what are the expectations for the real estate market in the near future? The information we have offers some insights into what we might expect, right?
Yes, the outlook shared for the upcoming financial year is generally optimistic.
Oh, good.
There are expectations of robust opportunities, particularly within specific price brackets.
Oh, okay.
And importantly, there's an anticipation that new property launches will likely be more appealing to buyers,
Mm.
which directly connects back to our earlier discussion about, the positive impact of RERA
Right, the increased confidence.
and the growing confidence in project delivery that we're observing.
Mm.
The expectation is generally for improved planning and more reliable execution of new projects moving forward.
Okay, so just to quickly recap the key insights for you listening. We've seen a significant move towards new construction. That seems largely driven by past negative experiences and the increased security offered by RERA.
Right. Trust and transparency are key.
And in a market where property values have risen sharply, these innovative payment solutions are emerging to help with affordability.
Yeah, making things more manageable over time.
The viability of buying plots, well, that's heavily dependent on whether you're in a major metropolitan area or maybe a smaller tier 2 city, very location specific.
Crucially location specific.
And in terms of construction, there seem to be these ongoing trade-offs between cost, quality, and the sheer convenience of ready-to-move-in properties, which kind of reflects broader shifts in our lifestyles.
Hmm. That's a concise overview of the key dynamics we've explored, I think. And understanding these underlying forces is really crucial. Whether you're actively looking to buy a property right now, maybe considering it as an investment down the line, or simply want to stay informed about the trends shaping the real estate landscape around you.
Absolutely. So as you, our listener, consider all these trends we've discussed, the preference for new over existing properties, those innovative payment options, the differing potential of plots in various cities, and that balancing act between quality and convenience in construction. What do you think will be the single most influential factor in your real estate decisions in the coming years?
Hmm. Good question.
Will it be affordability, the specific location, maybe the reputation and reliability of the builder, or perhaps an entirely different consideration? It's definitely something to think critically about as you navigate this constantly evolving market.